Hey guys, Alex from 7th Hour Films back again with Vinland Saga. Last time around we had The Troll's Son, where basically Thorfinn was pretty much on his own. He was, he was around Askeladd's boys, but he was staying in the woods. He challenged Askeladd a couple times to a duel. Didn't go so well. But he is learning, he is training, and he is learning to survive. And while at the end he still couldn't beat Askeladd, he did say, hey, go achieve something great on the battlefield. Then I will reward you with a duel. So now we have our journey for our protagonist. On the other side of things, the news of Thor's death reached Iceland, and his remaining family was dealing with that grief, which is sad. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. Like always, the reaction is down in the description and in the pinned comment for your viewing pleasure, so let's go ahead and jump right into this episode of Vinland Saga. Here we go. If you're gonna be a Viking, you can't... We'll just leave it at that, you can't. There you go. If you're gonna be a Viking, you gotta be a piece of shit. I mean, it's pirates, there's always this sort of, romanticized view of pirates, and it's just like, but no, like there's these romantic views of pirates of like, even like something like Pirates of the Caribbean, or I don't know how much this will count because I haven't seen too much of it, but even like something like One Piece, it's like, yeah, One Piece is great. We got Luffy, and he's a good guy, and the Straw Hat Pirates are good people. I say this with minimal knowledge of One Piece, just like the first couple arcs, but it's like, yeah, but hell, look at the rest of the pirates in One Piece. I would say the rest of the pirates in One Piece are pirates, Look at the Vikings in here. They are pirates, they are Vikings. And that was... Honestly, that's what Thor's was like. You can assume that's what he was like before everything. Before he deserted, there is a distinct point made between Thor's and Askeladd that, Askeladd doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have any children, whereas Thor's does, and that is what changed him, And it's such an interesting thing, Like, again, just sort of... I like this idea, and we talked about this. It wasn't last episode, it was the episode before when we were talking about... It was after Thor's death. And we were talking about, like, masculinity and toxic masculinity and just, what does it mean to be a man in relation to these Vikings. And it's an interesting thing, It's an interesting topic, and I feel like you can get a lot from this show in particular, like, because I feel like, see, I don't know, do I want to like drag up any debates or anything, but it's just like, see, I don't know like too much of the public perception of this show, other than what I hear about this show is mainly from anime fans who have seen it, and they say it's amazing, But I don't think... See, I don't know, like, I feel like there would be stupid people watching this and not getting it, And I don't mean like, you just don't see the point or anything, but like, I feel like some people would look at this and be like, well... Thorfinn, he's weak, and maybe Thor's was softened, It's like, oh, he went so, like they would basically go with the other Vikings, with the other Vikings and with Floki of like, oh, he's gotten soft now. Now he had a wife and kids, and now he's soft, and it's like, I feel like stupid people would watch that, and I feel like that's mainly just because, like, the reason I think that is because I know stupid people watch anime, and I'm sure none of you guys are. Like, you guys are probably fine. But especially after, I mean, we make the comparisons to Attack on Titan, and I'll make comparisons, even though I have problems with Attack on Titan, it's like, I'll make the comparisons. I still think there's a lot of good stuff in Attack on Titan, but I know there were also a lot of stupid people that watched that, There were a lot of stupid people that watched Attack on Titan and didn't get anything, But I don't know. I'm hoping that no stupid people watch this, or, they at least got smarter. I don't know. It's an interesting, like, character arc. You have the sort of, like, competing ideals, basically. The ideal of Thor's, being this good man, a true warrior, and which even, like, something like when we talk about, like, Askeladd, like, oh, he goes out there, he's a piece of crap, and he does all this stuff, but even Askeladd is a bit deeper than that, just based on his interaction with Thor's, and then we have the sort of the mythical Viking, I suppose, and does Thorfinn try to live up to that, and I think it makes a really interesting, story, that's a very interesting thing, watching Thorfinn become a young man and see, what kind of a person does he become, and I like too, because it's like, where there is, we talk about Thor's kind of being the Uncle Ben, the Obi-Wan, he's the sort of catalyst death for our young hero. Even still, I like just immediately, like, no, there is a sort of new trauma that springs up, like, almost immediately, of, Thorfinn wanting to get stronger and stronger, but eventually, immediately he sees, repercussions of his actions, basically, he sees the woman and her daughter, and, basically he's the reason that they are killed. Now, granted, I guess he was going to be the reason anyway, He was going to be the reason anyway, but now it affects him, Now that he's seen, basically he puts a face to the number, like, oh, instead of just there are, and I guess they basically explain that this, they kind of say that this is the first time that Thorfinn has been a part of a raid on a village. Like, it seems like the past year or so that he's been with Askeladd, that he's been, like, they've been attacking just soldiers. And while there were soldiers there were English soldiers there, this seems to be the first time he's really attacked a village, I don't know, like, that's kind of what I'm assuming, but yeah, but it's a very interesting thing, Now, I mean, getting into some of the technicals, I am curious, just as a quick, clarification in the comments, so the way they explain it is that this is a quarrel, basically, or a conflict between Denmark and England, the English and the Danes, basically. Now, they explain, correct me if I'm wrong, but they explain that Askeladd and his, troops, basically, are Danish, but they are also Vikings, specifically. Like, I don't know if I'm, like, crossing my wires on any of that, but so maybe I just need a clarification. Am I right about that? Is that they are Danish, but, I mean, they're like pirates, They're pirates to the Danish, whereas the Danish, they have their own soldiers, but now they're hiring, these pirates, these Vikings, because they are good warriors, and probably expendable warriors too, like they say, like, oh, they want to clean up any threat that is in England before the King of Denmark arrives. So I think that's it. I think I just got a little confused on it, but so it's just like the Vikings are basically like a separate. I mean, it's, I don't know. It's I don't even want to say like a minority of the Danish, but that's kind of what I'm getting. I don't know. I mean, it's not important. That's why I was like, it's just sort of a little technical thing. But it was just something that, is sticking in my head when obviously the important thing is watching Thorfinn's journey begin. And yeah, just seeing, the first time he gets a kill. Which is crazy. But it's interesting that they don't they kind of dwell on it, but it's like they don't dwell on it forever. Like you would almost expect the whole this whole episode to be about his first kill, and maybe he's wrestling with that, maybe he talks to someone about that, but there's none of that. It just, we go right to the next one, We just see him basically hardening over the course of this year, until he runs into the English. So yeah, and that was an interesting thing too. And I will say, it's because we talk about, I made the comment that it's a little difficult to get, how do you pronounce the names, because they're, Viking and English names in Japanese. It's like, I will say it's a little difficult. I really have to suspend my disbelief, and it's really difficult when I'm reading both of their speech, they're both speaking in Japanese and I'm reading it in English, but they can't understand each other because in the story, Thorfinn is speaking Danish, whereas the woman and the daughter are speaking English. And so it's just, I don't know. It's sort of a difficult thing, It's a very difficult thing with that, But, that's just a very minor thing. Just sort of the language barrier. It's it's the language barrier, but they're both technically speaking the same language, and it's a different language from the language that I'm speaking, because they're speaking in Japanese and I'm reading it through English. There's 10 different layers of it, I mean, it's kind of like, See, that's the funny thing. It's I'll watch something like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and it's like, okay, part 3, you have two of the kids that are from Japan. You have Joseph, who's English from America, basically. You have Avdol, who's Egyptian. You have Polnareff, who's French. Somehow they all speak the same language, though, but they just don't. They don't mention it, They don't mention it, even though none of them really should know the same language, unless they, I don't know, they just don't bring it up, so you don't think about it in JoJo. Whereas here, because again, this is so realistic, they bring up that sort of language barrier, but then it sort of makes it difficult, it's kind of like if you watch an anime that's dubbed, there was a moment in My Hero Academia where, and I was watching it in the dub, where they talk about hey, can I get your help in studying? I'm having such a hard time in English. And it's just kind of funny. It's like, oh, I'm having a hard time. It's like, I can't really get, English down. And it's that's hilarious because it's an English dub where you're speaking English, But they do that because, in the story, they're in Japanese, they're in Japan, they're speaking Japanese, it's just that we're hearing it in English in the dub, so it's just kind of a funny little thing, but yeah, I was also gonna look up, can I look up this King of England in 1008? King of England 1008. Yeah, so that's the actual Ethelred. Yeah. Which, I mean, it makes sense that, that's historically accurate, is that's who the King of England was in 1008, But, I don't know, there's just something about that that's really cool. Honestly, it's the historical accuracy that's really, really intriguing to me, And this is coming from someone who, if you watch my Doctor Who videos, I like the historical episodes of Doctor Who. It's a time travel show. I like when they go back in time. But I also liked in classic Doctor Who when they did the pure historicals where there were no aliens or sci-fi or anything. And so honestly, like, watching this is like, it is really nice that it's like, no, there's no fantasy element in this at all. This is just a historical, I guess you could say a period piece, just an anime. It's an interesting subject for an anime. Because again, you'll see stuff like Full Metal Alchemist, which does take place in the early 1900s, but it's a completely different world. It's a made-up country, and they have alchemy and stuff like that. And it's like, there's all this fantastical stuff that's different, but it is sort of a historical-esque setting. But here, it's just like, no, someone, whoever the author is in Japan, like, they friggin' did their homework, and it's awesome, Again, it's like, this is one of the things, it's like, man, this is like, I don't know, I would be tempted to show my dad this, just because of how accurate and interesting it is, so. But yeah, good stuff, really, really good stuff in this episode, and I'm very curious to see where we are going with Thorfinn's sad journey, I'm going to say it's sad, but that's alright, so. But yeah, that is basically it. With all of that being said, I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around any of those. There's a playlist with all of my Vinland Saga reactions, as well as another video you can go click on if you want. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.